Hey Steph, how's it going?
Not bad, I suppose. Just taking a break from prepping some videos before going home for the holidays.
Really now? I don't suppose one of those reviews would happen to be...
Don't say it.
I'm just gonna keep bugging you about it until you break down and do it. It's only been 3 years since I suggested it after all.
I know, but you know how crazy these past few years have been for me. Alright, look. You know how I'm getting close to my 100th review, right?
Are you going to review...
No! I already know what I'm going to review for my 100th, but I haven't picked out what I'm going to review for 95 to 99 yet, so I figured I'll make a poll where people can vote for which shows I review before the 100th, and then...
Well, why don't you just figure out a way to squeeze in...
Can I finish, please?
Sorry.
Thank you. As I was about to say, I'll put the show onto the poll. If it makes it into the top 5, then I'll have no excuse to finally review it. Is that a deal?
What about all the other reviews that you...
Hardy.
Okay. You've got a deal.
Thank you. Now, I've got to get back to work, so I'll just talk to you later, okay?
Alright, talk to you soon.
Bye.
Keep it manly.
He's got a lot of rallying to if that show's gonna be in the top 5. Well, son of a bitch. Master Keaton is a 24-episode adventure drama series based on the original manga by Katsushika, illustrated by Naoki Urasawa, and published by Shogakukan. A sequel manga, Master Keaton Remaster, helmed by Urasawa and Nagisaka, began circulation in 2012 and is currently ongoing. The manga has actually recently been licensed by Viz Media in North America and is currently being released for the first time in English. The anime from director Masayuki Kojima and Studio Madhouse aired during the fall 1998 season, and an additional 15-episode OVA series from Kojima and Madhouse aired... Okay, that was a little bit tricky to pin down, you'll see why in a minute. As of this review, Master Keaton was formerly licensed by Genion, but since the company's gone defunct, it currently awaits being rescued. And unfortunately, Master Keaton has not been licensed in other regions, and it currently is unavailable for legal streaming.
Taichi Keaton is a man of many talents. Father, historian, frequent traveler, negotiator, archaeologist, former survival instructor, and all the while working as an insurance investigator for Lloyd's of London. While his methods may seem a bit unorthodox, he gets the job done when needed, but not without a little something to learn or teach in the process. Through all of his adventures, some people call him a quack. Those who know him well call him a master of life.
Now, I've mentioned in my Trigun review that since it premiered not long before Cowboy Bebop did, that I can't really fault its animation because it doesn't exactly fall under the whole Bebop standard that everyone is so hell-bent about. Master Keaton, however, is a different story because it premiered several months after Cowboy Bebop did, making those same criticisms and comments rather plausible here. However, I also can't really fault it here and figure this is kind of null and void because it doesn't take a short amount of time for other animation studios to catch up to something that successful. You know, the whole Rome wasn't built in a day thing.
Regardless, the animation here is rather dated, with parts of it not settling that well with the viewer, while other parts of it can be rather beautiful. The backgrounds are what give us this beauty the most, as we are taken to many different countries and locations over the course of 39 episodes, while Keaton travels either for business or for personal reasons, with London and Japan the most prominent, since Keaton mostly lives in London and has family back in Japan that he visits. While this animation is very old, there's also a rustic sense to it that can sometimes go along rather well with these different locations and wonderful imagery. The character designs, on the other hand, are rather mixed. Perspectives can lead to changes in design and sometimes rather odd facial expressions, making it one of the animation's weaker areas. As for the soundtrack, it's absolutely gorgeous. It manages to match both the cultural aspects of these various locations while, at the same time, give us some tracks that match more with Keaton's everyday life. This gives us a wonderful balance for both the action-intensive as well as the lighthearted moments. I actually listened through pieces from the soundtrack before watching the series, and it just made me look forward to the series even more.
Here's where things get a little bit interesting, because between the OVA series and the original series, there's not really much difference in terms of animation quality. You would think this is a no-brainer, however, the reason why I bring this up is because there's actually not really a pinned down air date for the OVA series in Japan. From the 4 different sites I looked into, there are actually 2 different time frames for when the OVA could have aired. The first claims that the OVA aired from 1999 to 2000, which makes the most sense here, but the other 3 gauge it to be around the mid-2000s, including Anime News Network. The bigger reason why this kind of caught my interest was if the OVA did air between 2004 and 2005, it's kind of coincidental because another Urasawa work was being adapted and released around that same time. Has anyone ever heard of the series Monster by any chance? Okay, so what does this mean for Keaton's OVA? I kind of came up with this little weird, interesting theory that was probably extremely wrong, but hear me out. My theory is that the OVA actually was originally set to be a 2nd season of Master Keaton. However, because the first didn't really do so well, they canceled production. 6 years after the original series completed its run, and to coincide with Monster's release, Urasawa decides to release these 15 episodes as a kind of, lost season of sorts for Master Keaton. It's a bit of a stretch, I know, but it's completely possible, though I'm probably extremely wrong because some of those same sites also said that the North American release of Master Keaton was around the mid-2000s. So, yeah, I'm probably wrong. It's a good theory, though. To put the story of Master Keaton into simple terms, it's an episodic tale of one man's life and occupation. The story doesn't really have any kind of ongoing plot except for the final 2 episodes of the OVA where one of Keaton's jobs takes a 2-episode approach. Otherwise than that, it remains in its episodic format.
There are 3 different types of episodes in Master Keaton. The ones where Keaton works as an insurance op, the ones where Keaton interacts with his family or his family takes the forefront, and then the ones where we learn a little more about Keaton himself. The latter of the 3 you can see in only a couple of episodes, while flashbacks also occur during episodes that are relevant to Keaton's past in some way. So what does that make the heart of the story then? It's simple. It's the interactions with varying characters Keaton meets in his everyday life. Throughout the series, there are very few recurring characters, leaving room for many stories and one-shot characters in order to fill the void. Normally, viewers may find this boring, but what makes this idea really work are the stories and situations these characters are involved in. One minute you're watching Keaton interact with an elderly woman on a train headed for Sweden, while the next, Keaton is helping 4 fellow archaeologists survive a harsh desert like a motherfucking badass. With these varying stories, it's like we're joining Keaton and learning these lessons with him, which makes for something rather different than you would first think the series to be. As far as I can remember, Keaton's form of storytelling is the oldest I've seen to use this idea, and even use it rather well. Since we aren't limited to one set location, that means we get dozens of stories and perspectives that include the livelihood of individuals even after historical events such as World War II and the fall of the Berlin Wall. For someone who is interested in history, this is probably as close to the truth as you can get, even if the series is a work of fiction.
As you can probably tell by now, this series has a lot of characters in it, but it at least gives us a few recurring characters in that span of 39 episodes that we can learn from.
With Keaton himself, the title of anime MacGyver just doesn't do enough justice, because he is a resourceful and rather intelligent badass who just happens to love archaeology. However, there's also a softer side of the character as well, because Keaton often displays a childlike curiosity and mentality similar to someone who wears their heart on their sleeve.
Similar to Trigun, it makes for an interesting duality to his character, and it also makes you think about which side is actually the real one, the military man or the dreamer. My money's on the latter of the 2.
Keaton's daughter, Yuriko, also becomes a recurring character we see grow in the series, going from a middle school student to, I believe, college and a young adult. She takes on the role of the woman of the house, becoming almost like a nagging wife to both Keaton and her grandfather, but mostly because she finds it crazy that the 2 are still not over their ex-wives. But this isn't the only major quality Yuriko has, as she takes on the same curiosity as her father does, and sees life in a different way, making the resemblance to Keaton very clear. Then there's Keaton's father and Yuriko's grandfather, Taiki Hiriga, who is kind of like an older version of Keaton, except he doesn't mind helping out young women every now and again, causing some hijinks once in a while as well as a running gag in the series. All things considered, it's pretty much a father-like-son scenario with a few minor changes, such as Taiki's passion for zoology rather than Keaton's love of archaeology, but that doesn't mean he doesn't take an interest in Keaton's work. Daniel O'Connell is Keaton's boss/partner for the insurance agency he works for. He kinda gives the impression of this know-it-all wise guy, but he does mean well and seems like a rather nice guy. We don't get much in terms of backstory and Keaton and his family, but we get enough to help establish Daniel's relationship with Keaton, including a full episode of how the pair first met at the end of the original series.
Which is an odd time to place that, by the way.
As for the rest of our massive cast, seeing as how this is an episodic format, we get proper backstory and information on the relevant characters in each episode, from KGB officers to high society folks and even to fallen heroes. Each story is just as interesting as the next, and you will grow to either sympathize or even hate some of them. It's certainly a product of good writing.
The animation isn't the only thing that's rather dated about this series. Since we have a lot of European locales, that means we have a lot of different accents in the English dub. We have, let's see, English, German, Italian, Spanish, French, Russian, and even Chinese at some point. Some of these are good, while others kind of affect their performance in a poor way. However, it's also kind of fun to see those stereotypical accents.
As far as dub performances go for our recurring characters, Ross Douglas is basically the reason why I got this wise guy vibe off of Daniel. Though I find it weird that Douglas didn't opt for an accent just like many of the other English folks in the series, so that threw me off and kind of hurt his performance a bit. William Samples fit the role of Taiki Hiriga rather nicely, giving us the similar childlike curiosity despite being an elderly gentleman. Kelly Sheridan may not seem all that familiar at first, but if you've seen Inuyasha, then you automatically remember her for her role of Sango, maybe even her role as one of the Nanas in the series Nana. As Yuriko, it's kind of tricky because the voice didn't really grow with the character. As an adult, the performance was wonderful, but with the middle school and even a bit of the high school Yuriko, it seemed a little too adult at times. As for Ted Cole and his performance of the title character Taichi Keaton, it was a fun performance. Rough at times, but that's to be expected of an early 2000s dub. Cole portrays Keaton's dual sides rather well, and sometimes made for some rather hilarious as well as badass moments in the dub. Certainly my favorite performance from the cast.
Once we MacGyver ourselves out of danger, Master Keaton is a very underappreciated series. There are parts of it that are rather dated, such as the animation and English dub. However, there's still much more that it offers the viewer to make for something really wonderful. It's simple in nature and in premise, and the story is really easy to follow, but it's really all about these characters and their stories rather than trying to make for something overly complex. It's a refreshing series to see, but I think it's not getting enough attention that it should. And until the day comes where it's relicensed and I can pre-order the living hell out of it, I'll be following the manga. A special thank you to Space Fan Hardy for not only appearing in the review, but also requesting that I review Master Keaton a long time ago. Hopefully you're happy now that your favorite anime has been reviewed. Next time, we search for paradise. So until then, otaku on, my friends.